Good morning, everyone. We're coming to you again from Guatemala. Another talk in our series Talking Amanae. I'm having here with me today Chuck Craigel, who's here to share about his experience working with me. Chuck, I've worked with Chuck a few years back. He came here to Guatemala to visit, and somehow our road crossed, and we have worked over a period of time. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll let Chuck talk about his experience and how it all happened. If I remember something of it better than him, I'll tip in and add some information. But yeah, Chuck, from my experience, before we go to Chuck, he worked with me quite intensively over a period of about two and a half, 3 months.
Right.
He came practically twice a week, and really was committed to transform his life at the moment. And I think the evidence are showing that he had done so.
Well, thank you.
So welcome,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
and thank you for saying yes to it and being here today.
Mhm.
Amanae is a very personal work, and I appreciate people who are willing to come here and share about their personal experience. For me, it's really important because I want us all to be personal out there. So
Right.
willing to do it out there in YouTube requires courage, actually, and integrity.
I'm
So
happy to be here and share. So thank you for the invitation.
thank you. So let's begin and talk about how did you come to find me or Amanae? What called you to this work?
You know, I think if I look back on it, I would say that there was no randomness about it. I think I came to Guatemala on a mission without realizing that I was on a mission. But I had several things going on in my life at the same time. My brother, who was just a year older than me, had just passed away.
Yeah.
I was suddenly single after being in a relationship for several years. Still relatively newly retired, so I had a lot of major changes going in my life.
Yeah.
So I started traveling, and I was traveling a lot. And I don't think that I even realized that I was looking for something, but I didn't know what I was looking for. So I ended up here in Guatemala, and I was going through a magazine, and I saw an ad that you had in one of the magazines, and so I gave you a call.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I found you.
Yeah. And I do remember when you called me,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember that you did say you were here transitioning, and you actually called me initially looking for if I can recommend
Exactly.
a psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, you want to talk about what you need exactly, because I think you didn't just knock on my door for no reason. And I said, let's meet and talk and see how I can help you. And we met in town in a
Mhm.
coffee place, and
We
you
did.
came for your first session. And I believe that at the time there was also some medical situation that came up about.
Yes, I was also having problems with blood pressure, and
Yeah.
I was on a lot of different medications for that. So, I mean, looking back on it now, considering what I was going through emotionally, I'm sure that was the major cause for some of the physical problems I was
Yeah.
having as well. So,
So yeah, because I remember you came here, and so you came for the first session, and we began working, and we addressed. I didn't know the whole multitude of what happened at that time in your life. You shared what you were ready to share at the moment, and you had your first session. And what was your experience of that?
You know, it was, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Because I think it was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And so I don't really think that I fairly kind of evaluated what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave you a call,
Yeah.
and I told you that I think that I was going to pursue a different kind of therapy, and you made a recommendation. And so I followed that recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
But after going through a more traditional therapist, I kept coming back to our session. again and again and again. And I thought, maybe I was looking for something traditional when something non-traditional is exactly what I really needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I called you back.
Okay. So I remember the first session we talked and we did some Amanae work. I can't say that I remember exactly what was that session
Mm-hmm.
because that was many years back and a lot of water have flown to the ocean since then.
Right.
But I do remember something very clear that we talked about what was happening, and just after you are an active person, you
Yes.
can see it in your body, and I think you were just after an injury, and I think with everything that happened in your life, you were not being active or going to the gym for a while. And I remember that after the first session, I sort of like demanded that
Mhm.
you go back to the
You
gym. I
did.
said, you need it back to you because it's like your best friend that's always been there, and you're just now disconnected from it. And
When I let all these external things
Yeah.
kind of make me depressed to the point that the things I love most in life all of a sudden were no longer important to me.
yeah,
And going to the gym, you describe it as an old friend, and I had let all my routines, the healthy routines of my life, kind
Yeah.
of fall by the wayside. And so you got me to go back to the gym. And when I got there, it was like seeing an old friend that did not have an attitude. Welcome, come on in.
yeah,
And that was over 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago.
yeah.
And I've been going to the gym ever since. So you opened that door for me, and thank you for that.
I think I reopened the door.
You
was-
reopened the door for me, yeah.
I don't know if I reopened, but I extended an invitation. Maybe it's just my false humbleness trying not to
Yes.
say that but you had a choice, and you chose that the next morning to be there early in the morning and to begin your routine. And then, as you said, you walked out and you did decide eventually after you called me and you went to the convention, you came back and then you were really committed, because I believe that when you said that you think you're not coming back, I said, whatever you're going to do next,
Mhm.
just stay with it. Give it
Right.
more than one session chance. Just see that it's something that works for you. If after a few sessions you figure not okay, but like just commit to something.
Right.
And then you came back,
And I came back,
committed.
committed.
Yeah.
And our sessions began, and it was very intense, very uncomfortable a lot of the time.
Hmm.
But the more that I started coming, the more I started realizing that traditional therapy of just telling someone your problems and having somebody give you an answer wasn't going to work for me.
Hmm.
But dealing with a combination of breathing, of massage, of chanting,
Hmm.
of getting different emotions that have been bottled up for a long time because of different issues,
Yeah.
to deal with those, like on a less traditional sort of path.
Yeah. And you said it like, you came and we were working with your body, obviously, and you said it was intense and uncomfortable at the moment.
Right.
I don't know if you feel, are you willing to explain what you mean by it being intense or uncomfortable your experience? How, in what way was it? Like, if you can explain a little bit more about the experience, because I sort of know about it, but it's important for me, I think, and for other people to hear, because intense is a wide word, and that leaves
is.
a lot of space for the imagination, what was intense there. If you remember and if you are willing.
Oh, I'm absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think maybe I was looking for therapy that was kind and gentle,
Uh-huh.
that was going to be an easy cure to things that were bothering me,
Yeah.
that things that were preventing me from living a full life. And working with you and Amanae was uncomfortable because I was dealing with things that I didn't want to deal with.
Okay.
I was breathing deeper than I've ever breathed before. You were helping me bring up emotions that were painful,
Yeah.
and then deal with those emotions. The massage part of the therapy is painful as well, because what you're doing is you're getting the body to release feelings and emotions through touch.
Yeah.
And that's not always a comfortable touch. Sometimes it's painful. And so I guess when I say it was intense, the sessions were kind of like each one was a voyage where you start and then the breathing starts.
Yeah.
And everyone was different.
Mm-hmm.
And every voyage took me somewhere new.
Yeah.
And sometimes to places I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
But those were probably places that I needed to.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess it was intense because it wasn't always pleasant.
Yeah.
It was intense because I was dealing with things that I had bottled up for years.
Yeah.
It wasn't just my brother passing away. It wasn't just that I was suddenly single after having been in a relationship. It wasn't just that I was having health issues. There were a lot of other things that I had been bottling up for years. I didn't realize that until I started my work with you.
Yeah. And I remember at the time we were talking, and you mentioned the bottle up, and I don't have the scientific proof for me, but for me, all this bottle up
Mm-hmm.
and is what makes high blood pressure as well.
Right.
I remember that you talked at the time about high blood pressure, hypertension being like something hereditary that's been going genetically in your
Right.
family. Your parents, your siblings all have it. And we spoke at the time that, like, at least in the way I see the world, what I believe is more hereditary is the way you all lead your life,
Right.
bottling it all up. And if that can change, maybe the high blood pressure can go down as well. I never made any recommendation to go off pills because that's not mine to do.
Right.
I'm not an MD and I never recommend this to clients, but I'm a great believer that, like, if we ease in our body and our emotion, the physical start to change and adapt to it as well. And I believe that that was the case for you.
Yeah, I think it's easy for us to buy into something like, I have high blood pressure because my father had it, because my mother had it, because my brothers had it. And sometimes that can be an excuse.
Yeah.
So I think when I started therapy with you and I started going back to the gym,
Yeah.
I started breathing and living a little bit again. What happened is my blood pressure naturally started coming down. And I think that just for my case, I think having a good balance between exercise, keeping myself mentally active,
Mm-hmm.
is a really good natural cure to
Yeah.
bring my blood pressure down. And so I don't take medication now, and maybe I
Okay.
will need to do so in the future, but for right now, I'd rather take care of my issue, my genetic problem. Of
Let's
blood
get
pressure.
ahead. Let's not get ahead of the issue and, like, I don't see you needing the lifestyle in the way that I know you leading your life
Right.
right now. I'm just I had to barge in because I don't want you to think that one day you might.
Okay,
You'll get to it, but don't
that's fine.
prepare for it mentally. Maybe one
Good
day,
point, right.
because Chuck is 63 years old. Okay, like, I'm probably gonna take from Facebook some of the photos of what he's doing at 63 years old. It's unbelievable, I want at 63 to be able to do what he does and to be that fit and that healthy.
Well,
So,
thank you.
You're like an inspiration on that level for me and for many others who follow you on
I
Facebook.
think for me, it's, we were talking earlier
Yeah.
about fitness, and I started doing yoga as
Yeah.
well, and that's a really great combination to my physical fitness because it makes that mental connection as well.
Mhm.
And I think it allows me to keep doing the breathing that we talked about so many different times in the sessions.
Yeah,
And it allows me to be present,
yeah,
and it allows me to really do away with all the laundry lists and things, the obligations that I have
yeah,
for the time that I'm doing yoga or the time that I'm working out at the gym. But it started with you, and
Okay.
I think reopening that door for me. I didn't realize that the things that I missed the most are the things that I'd given up. And I think when we get depressed,
yeah.
we don't even realize that we're letting those things go. So thank you for that.
I really appreciate that. It was an honor for me, and I think you are correct. When we get depressed, And I think it happens to all of us. It's sort of we go into a new pattern because there's a pattern before that worked for us. Maybe not perfectly, but we need, and now for some reason we slipped out of it. To be depressed on a constant basis, and I don't want to talk about clinically depressed, anything like that, but situation that happens in life and bring us there,
Right.
we go into a routine and then we forget the things that support us to be who we are.
Right.
And being, when we get depressed, we generally don't move our body. We become stuck. So one of the first thing we did is to get you back to be active,
Right.
because that's something you spoke about passionately. I noticed it in the first session, but you let it go and you went into where you needed to go for the time. So that was an opening. And then, as you mentioned, your body started communicating differently. You were coming to the session and what was happening, what you talked about, that it becomes intense. It's because the body brings up things that needs, things that are ready. I don't like the word need, but they are ready to be processed,
Right.
ready to be faced. When we sit here on the therapy couch with the therapist, it's all being processed through our mind. I'm not saying, I'm not going to talk about it. Doesn't matter how much I'm paying here to talk about this. I'm not talking about this today because it is really uncomfortable for me. But with Amanae, the body just brings it up. And you bring it up through your body because the body doesn't lie. And that's part of the magic of it. And I also wanted to mention that, like, you know, because I was there, I witnessed, I saw how you came and you were here, and within 3 months, you were sort of a different man, ready to jump back on the wagon, and actually a different wagon, and lead life differently.
And like I said, every session with you is different for me. And I think dealing with things that I wasn't comfortable dealing with was exactly what I needed to be doing. And, you know, making sounds, breathing differently. These are all things that I wasn't used to in traditional therapy. And I always thought of myself as a fairly balanced person. And I didn't have a lot of, I'm not a depressed person by nature. But I think all of these things happen at the same time that I just let them overwhelm me. And then every session with you, it would pull up something new. We would deal with something new. And as our sessions continued, twice a week for 3 months, I was breathing better outside the sessions. I was being more active. I was being more clear-headed. I was being more in the moment. And I think it's a direct result from my therapy with you.
Okay. Well, it was a pleasure to work with you back then in the days, and it's a pleasure to see you here every time you come for a visit. And as I said initially, I really appreciate that you were willing to sit down today and share about your experience. And I hope and I trust that I'll keep seeing you here on your visit for years to come.
You definitely will. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Bless you.
Bless you.
And thank you everybody there for being witness to this conversation today. And until the next time, have a wonderful day.